Welcome back, everyone. It is Sunday sit-down time. We got the St. Louis Post-Dispatch's Eli Hoff in the house for Sunday sit-down. Thanks for joining us on what's really been a hectic week, maybe I'd say, for Mizzou Athletics. A thing or two going on here and there.
Yeah, I think it's another week that I don't think any Mizzou people had on their bingo card, and I feel like we've been saying that a lot lately. That it's throwing out the whole playbook. So it's been another hectic week, but I'm glad to be sitting down and chatting about it today.
Right. Well, it's funny because I started this week saying, it'll be a slow week. Like maybe we'll get a little break here, but then obviously right off the bat, Monday morning.
Yeah, 11 a.m. on Monday, it was all tossed aside.
That's a start to a Monday. Well, let's get into it. Desiree Reed-Francois leaving for the same job at Arizona. My initial reaction was surprise. What was yours when you saw that news?
I was entirely surprised, too. I think everybody outside the athletics department looking in was surprised. I think everybody inside the athletics department, too, there was a lot of surprise there as well. Just not a departure that we would have expected at all, and not a destination either that you would have expected. That it's hard to sell this as an upward move for her. I think it's lateral at best in being generous there. So just a really odd move to happen coming out of left field in the middle. Basketball season's still going. Football's about to start. Things have been going well from Mizzou, just not at all what you would expect to happen.
Well, you think there's so many plans that have been made. We were talking before we sat down here. I sat down with her in December, and then they're talking about, obviously the north end zone and all these upgrades they're making. Just it's days after that oversight committee formed. Obviously we don't know how much of a role that played, but it seems like, some correlation there probably.
Yeah, I think so. When you look at the timing of the Board of Curators voting to create a Mizzou Athletics Oversight Committee, and then about, I guess, 10 days after, give or take a couple days, the athletic director is gone. Again, it's probably a little over-speculative to say there's a direct link there, but I think there are good, genuine questions to be asked about what Desiree Reed-Francois' relationship was with the Board of Curators, what sort of powers they want to have going forward to control the athletics department or oversee the athletics department. And those are questions, some of which I think will be answered during the search as we sort of figure out what type of candidate, what type of leader they're looking for. But there's other questions that candidates themselves might have now from the outside looking in at an athletics department. I don't think most of these upper-level administrators, want to worry about being micromanaged. And we don't know if that's the case with the Oversight Committee, but it's something that might draw some caution from those who are looking at this.
Well, what does a Desiree Reed-Francois-sized hole in an athletic department look like? How big is that?
It's massive. Just you look at the success that Mizzou Athletics has found so quickly in her tenure, from the hire of Dennis Gates and that NCAA tournament appearance. This year's basketball season maybe counts against her, but I think that's maybe certainly excused by what football was able to do, what some of these non-revenue sports were able to do. You look at the volleyball team's success, that was incredible. You look at the success that softball is already having, what wrestling, all of these sports have found so much success. And I think that's in large part to her. You look at some of the just game day experience of it's cheaper prices for fans to buy a hot dog and fries and get that at games. It's more accessible. She was always, you'd see her at sporting events. We'd see her as reporters, but I think fans would see her in the gold blazers going around the games too. That's something that I think was a noticeable absence just from Tuesday's home basketball game. You didn't see her there. So all of those things are things that you have to replace in an athletic director, and it's hard to find all of those in one person who can really do that well.
Well, exactly. Kind of like what you mentioned, in that tunnel there when Mizzou basketball players leave the court, it did feel empty. She's always giving them high fives, really the face of Mizzou athletics, and obviously a visionary for what, this athletic department has changed so much since she's been here. What kind of person do you think, your opinion, needs to come in to kind of fill this hole?
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting because it's an athletic director who needs to come in and be able to work with hires who aren't their own. Because despite this basketball season, Dennis Gates is sticking around for at least a little while longer. Eli Drinkwitz is not going anywhere anytime soon. One of the maybe X-factor decisions will be what to do with the women's basketball program and Coach Robin Pinchton. But it's an athletic director who needs to be able to come in and just sort of pick up where somebody else left off and continue that going forward. I don't know if that's an easy sell. Maybe there's athletic directors who'd rather come in and try to do a sort of a total reset. That's what Desiree Reed-Francois came in and did at Mizzou. So it's going to be a challenge there. And it's also a challenge of working with the Board of Curators. Obviously, they're looking for a candidate who they can feel like they have faith in and feel like will work with them. So that'll be a factor. And just the power of someone like Eli Drinkwitz has right now, given his job security and what he was able to do from a football standpoint. You know, I think he has probably earned the right to be able to call some of his own shots, and so it's about finding a candidate who can accommodate that as well.
Well, you know, speaking of football, it couldn't have been a more hectic time of year for this to happen. You know, we have the end of basketball season, and now spring camp is already here for Mizzou football. I want to dive into that a little bit. Obviously, coming on the heels of a really successful season for Coach Drinkwitz, 11-2 Cotton Bowl win. Heading into spring camp, you know, what's kind of the big storyline, you'd say?
I think you have to look at the defense and just how much turnover there is on that side of the ball from the players, losing so many starters to the NFL draft, which is a great sign as a program.
Right.
You want to be exporting players to the NFL, but you also have to find ways to replace those players. And so seeing the combination of transfers and underclassmen stepping in will be key, and also a new coach on the defensive side of the ball in Corey Batoon, what his coaching style is, how he's able to come in and work with these players early on, what his scheme is going to look like. Those are things, you know, we'll only get flashes during spring ball, but starting to see that process playing out will be something to watch. And then on the offensive side, you'll see a couple of starters filling in on the offensive line, replacing Cody Schrader. A lot more stability on the offensive side of the ball, but still some key spots to replace.
Well, we were also talking, you know, obviously Brady Cook, the clear starter, you know, no questions about that going into the upcoming season. But you got to look at that number 2 spot, of course, with Sam Horn being out with his injury, you know, getting surgery. What does that spot look like? Obviously, a very important position behind Brady Cook.
It is. It's going to be a hard spot, I think, to target in the portal, because you need to find a backup quarterback who you feel comfortable playing if it comes down to it. You don't want them, you know, you don't need to challenge Brady Cook. There doesn't need to be a quarterback. There won't be a quarterback competition this time around, which I'm sure he feels good about. You need someone who can fill that role. Ideally, you probably want someone who could stick around for a few years. And because you don't know, you know, Sam Horn will have to choose at some point between baseball and football, and maybe after this he chooses to go to baseball next season. So you want someone who can fill that going forward. And so that's you're looking for a young quarterback, but an experienced quarterback who doesn't have to play now but can play later. It's a really nuanced sort of player to find, and they'll be looking in the transfer portal come April when it opens again. But it'll be a hard player to maybe find perfectly. But at the end of the day, they'll just need another body who can come in and be a serviceable number 2.
Well, it's funny because I feel like in years past, people have been so excited about the defense coming in. You know, obviously still a lot of talent on that side of the ball, but you look at this offense with the wide receivers that they return this year. You know, Theo and obviously Luther. You know, what kind of year are you expecting maybe from that group? Obviously, a lot of eyes on Luther Burden, I would say.
I think just you expect an absolutely massive year for that wide receiver core. Of Luther Burden is getting nods as one of the best returning wide receivers in college football, if not the best.
Yeah.
You know, Theo Weiss fits that mold too with the experience. I don't think we should undersell Mookie Cooper deciding to come back as well. And there's other young players coming in who've been around. This wide receiver core has to be one of the deepest in certainly the SEC, probably in all of college football. So I think just having that wide range of options for Brady Cook to throw to. I'm curious what another year of Brett Norfleet looks like too, of you know, keeping him in the weight room and getting him a little bit more comfortable. His sophomore year could be a really big leap for him. So there's so much to be excited about in the pass game here, and even in the running back game too, with some of the rushers coming in there. I think there's a lot of experience coming in too.
Well, excited. Can't believe football. We're already talking about it again. I appreciate it.
It feels like we only just stopped, so we're right back into it.
We got a week break. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I appreciate you making some time on Spring Camp Eve. Let's call it.
Yes, Spring Camp Eve. It'll be exciting for everyone tomorrow to be, you know, getting back in pads and hitting each other soon enough, I think.
Right. Well, we're in spring camp mode as well. I appreciate you making some time.
Of course, Natalie. Happy to join.
For the rest of you guys, we'll be right back after the break.